work stuff.
So is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
All right, and all in favor of formally excusing them for today's meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that's 3. They are formally excused. Cool. Okay. And we haven't heard from Tina yet, but she has been sent an email, so hopefully she'll jump in here mid-meeting and we can get her caught up. I hope everybody had a good holiday season and good month or so since we all last met and everything. I know it was kind of brainstorming stuff going on. Did anybody have anything they wanted to share today?
No, not necessarily anything new, but
Okay.
I would just like to continue our conversations about like we were saying, wrapping the street box and things like that, moving forward. So
Okay. All right, well, I think first, before we jump right into it, next thing on here is the Pledge of Allegiance and then the approval of the agenda. So if we can get the pledge going, I think first, do we have a flag here or?
We have a constitution.
I have a pen here. I mean, it kind of
pledge allegiance
works.
to the pen. Yeah.
I mean, I could throw one up on the screen if you want.
I mean,
Let's do that.
might have to bring a little one that we can.
We can find a flag,
Yeah, I'm sure.
bring it in here.
Is there anything in our bylaws about a quorum, about how many members we have to have present, or, is there any issues with that?
Good question.
Yes, there are, and you have 4 members out of 7 that are present.
Yeah, 4 members, what, that are present, you said?
Out of 7.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've got a quorum.
All right, and we have a flag up here, so I guess we can stand up and hop right into the pledge.
Well, I'll stand
All right.
too.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, cool. And has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda real quick?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And do we have a motion to approve today's agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. We have a second.
Second.
Right, seconded by Chris. All in favor of approving today's agenda?
Aye.
Okay. And have we received any public comments to the office or anything that you're aware of?
No, we've not received any public comments,
Okay.
nor is anybody in the Zoom room or present here in the
Yeah.
conference room.
Okay. Well, cool. And then on to the presentation. Okay, and yeah, we can just kind of pick up the discussion where we were last time and kind of go off of that.
So at hand is the opportunity to use $15,000 available today for art art in the downtown area as part of revitalization efforts. We will continue to receive some additional funding from that source, which is a franchise agreement with Waste Management in the future. And at the last meeting, there was ideas being generated by the commission about a potentially a program that could be utilized for those dollars. In addition to that, I believe that there was some discussion about historic photography, and Zach has been able to find some older photos of Airway Heights, which we'll be putting onto the screen so you can take a look at them as well. So if you want to resume that dialogue, and as Chris indicated just a little bit earlier, that kind of circle in on a potential idea or opportunities.
Yeah.
To use those dollars, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. And one quick question, with the turn of the new year, does that add to the 15 that was there, or is that a later part? I know, isn't it $3,000 yearly?
It's $3,000 a year annually that comes from the contract. I would have to consult with the city manager to see when Waste Management would actually
Okay.
transfer those funds over to the city. I
Okay.
don't know if it's the first of the year or at
Right.
what point.
Yeah. Cool,
Are
cool.
tho- are those going to be the sole sources of our funding? I know, have we talked about some others?
No, there are other sources of funding available to the Arts Commission. The first opportunity would be for grants that the city would be eligible for. So that could be an activity that we could look into more deeply. We have done some work looking at grants at the state level in Washington State, as well as locally. One of those I mentioned at the last meeting is an Avista grant, which they do quarterly, and that grant, which is typically most applicable to arts, occurs in the fall of each year. And I would need to go back and take a look and see what the amount was that is available. I don't quote me on this, but I seem to think it was somewhere around $10,000 or $12,000 that is available through this as part of their ongoing program. I'll look it up real quick for you, but yes, we could look at grant opportunities. The other certainly would be through the city budget. Now, certain public projects are required to set aside 1% of their funding for art. And so that is a conversation now that the budget's been adopted, was just adopted, I think
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah. So city council was out during the last week of December and the first of January, but we could go request specific information from the city manager and the finance director about capital projects that are planned for this year and about that 1%. Now, in addition to grants, the opportunity through public projects would be actual fundraising that the city could do in order to develop arts, and those could be through donations, contacting art endowment funds, and other sources to create dollars for art.
Yeah.
And that's just a few.
So, I missed the last meeting, but what is Waste Management doing this as part of their contract with the city?
Yes, the city of Airway Heights, as many jurisdictions do when they don't have their own solid waste department.
Right.
They franchise, which means it's a multi-year contract for
Right.
exclusive rights to get our garbage. And with that contract, the city negotiated some additional opportunities, one of which was to contribute funds to help revitalize our downtown. And
Right.
the traditional downtown area is really kind of between Lawson and Lundstrom of the city. So this money's been collecting for 5 years. So it's $3,000 per year it's been collecting. So $15,000 would be an opportunity for the Arts Commission to get on an opportunity right away to think about how we could use that $15,000 that could be an art endeavor, but ties into this idea of downtown revitalization.
Does the city have other contracts with other
entities where we could leverage something like that?
I believe that there are also contracts with, for example, the Spokane tribe and the Kalispell tribe, but I don't know if there is anything in there that would be eligible for use as arts. So most of the services are provided directly by the city. So I'm kind of thinking of outside the box of additional revenue that could be coming in
Yeah.
that isn't already earmarked. So for example, we receive revenue when you pay your utility bill,
Right.
but by state law, it's limited to being used specifically for the utility. So that's why something.
Well, that may be why Vista has another program for that.
A lot of for-profit organizations.
Yeah.
So this is for-profit, but Walmart is another example. Lowe's and Home Depot are good examples where as part of their corporate profile, they do community development grants.
Right.
Yep.
And so Avista, we happen to know, does run an art-oriented grant as one of their annual grant offerings each year. But that would be, of course, another opportunity to contact a corporate entity because they often try to do community development, community building, and it varies. So like Home Depot and Lowe's, you know, they may be giving grants to Habitat for Humanity or rebuilding together, you know, that might have a construction focus. So it would really just be kind of, if that was a desire of the Arts Commission, you know, most of them require a formal letter from the agency
Yeah.
requesting information about availability of dollars. So we don't receive directly those dollars because we don't have specific contracts outside of the ones I just named, which was Avista, excuse me, Waste Management, Kalispell, and the Spokane tribe.
What about sales tax? A lot of cities do an addendum to their sales tax for art-related activities.
Well, currently all sales tax comes into the general fund, and then the general fund, the budget that's adopted each year, those dollars go to fund basic services. So
Right.
fire, police, operations, are where those dollars go. So it'd be a conscious decision to withhold part of those real estate tax dollars from general fund departments and set aside separately for art.
So is there a specific city sales tax that does that? Or are you talking
It's
about
generally
general
all of
the
the
sales tax
sales tax that's
from
collected
the state?
from the state.
Right.
A portion, of course, goes to the state, and then a portion of it comes to the local agency, and then those dollars are usually the basis of the general fund. So the general fund of a city is made up of two primary funding sources for police, fire, and operations, and those are the portion of the tax collected on property through the county, and then the other is sales tax.
Right. So does the city have the ability to enact another portion of sales tax themselves?
They do have the ability each year to do an incremental increase. I think it's only 1% that is passed, but that is used to supplement the general fund for operations
Right.
at this point.
Yeah. Does STA or WashDOT do any beautification grants or anything for transportation?
Not that I'm aware of, no. As a matter of fact, STA receives its funding predominantly from federal and state sources. And at least on the federal level, those dollars are prohibited from being used for art. So when we talk about Spokane's central line system, that was a major conversation over the last couple of years that, you know, how those stops could be improved because the federal money that they received couldn't be actually directly used for art. So it would be a process of probably looking at a variety of sources out there, and there are grants available directly from the state for arts that is set aside for arts, separate from sales tax or property tax. But they're highly competitive because every arts organization in the state is applying for them.
Yeah,
But, certainly that would be something to be looked at more closely by the Arts Commission and with us.
Does Airway Heights have a grant writer?
Yes, we do.
My next question would be, yeah, who's gonna
yeah.
write the letters? Are we gonna, is the city gonna do that, or would it be a collaborative effort? I'm sure, but
It would depend on the difficulty of the grant application, but yes, the city does have on contract a grant writer that is applying for grants for police, fire, courts. We're currently, for example, developing a childcare program for here in City Hall, so nobody runs along those lines. Yeah.
So if, because I would like to volunteer to research grants. So that if there's a way that we can apply for more, I mean, the more arrows we kind of throw at the dartboard.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what we're gonna be.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. My experience with grants has also been that grants are specific.
Yeah,
So one suggestion would be that as the Arts Commission is looking at what they would like to do, that could help the efforts that
Right.
you are endeavored to undertake, because that happens all the time. Like if you want to do a visual arts, typically the grant is going to be specific to visual arts
Mhm.
versus performance art,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so forth.
yeah. Absolutely.
But great dialogue, man. It's a lot. It's a lot of territory to cover as far as where future money can come from. Did you want to go through the photos real quick, Zach?
Oh, we just have the one.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But this is, we had a conversation last time we met about a historical photo, and I wanted to give you guys an idea of what it would look like. So this is Airway Heights in 1955, which was the year the city was incorporated. And you can actually see these three structures here are still in the city.
Okay.
Let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing here. I pulled it up just because I wanted to give you an idea of what they look like now. Sorry, having one 4x3 screen is insane. Let's go.
so curiously, I was thinking about this as well, because they would certainly come in handy for, with ideas and concepts for designs perhaps, but I was also thinking along the lines we had talked before about having an art market. I think we discussed that. That was in our minutes from our last meeting. And, I was thinking about how many wonderful, well, we do have a very long-lived Asian community here. I was thinking a lot of them have been shop owners along that strip. They might have some photos that we'd be able to tap. And, there's just, I think we could make those connections by putting feet to pavement, if you will, once we get rolling with our ideas, and that we'd probably be able to tap a few more resources than we have now, just, the run of the mill stuff. Not that this is run of the mill. I know that's hard to find historical photos. I've done stuff like this for a long time for like the Washington Grain Commission, and you can find a lot of things, not always things that are relevant, but.
That's an awesome idea, I think, to go find the shops that still have this stuff, maybe in their files, or maybe just some of them might have them hanging on the wall still even. I mean,
Right. A lot of them, I don't know who still owns property along there, how it's changed hands over the years, but if there's still some families that are around, and I personally know some families who've been here since, the early 50s, late 60s, even Air Force people, who've been here and decided to stay here. So I think there's some resources we could probably tap if we started getting people excited about the ideas.
yeah.
So there's a couple of vehicles to look for photos. And I think, and you correct me if this was an accurate description, the reason the Arts Commission was looking at historic photos was potentially to look at themes for art. Is that correct?
Yes.
I can see them coming in handy for a lot of things.
Certainly there are some vehicles that we have access to. One of them is that the city puts out a quarterly newsletter. And in that could be a small article asking for photographs from the community. So it goes out to about 4,000 email addresses. So it's a mix of businesses and residents. And then, employees in the area. One other opportunity, once we get the new website up in probably March, is on the Arts Commission page, just to put a call for photos.
Okay.
But it'd be really helpful if we do this, ask for photos, if someone could identify the quality of the photo. I have run into this before working on calendar projects where somebody can't simply cut and paste a blurry image off of the internet and send it through email and call it good. So I'm not sure if there's somebody who would be best suited to kind of establish what that, if it's not an original, if it was a digital image with quality that might be, that could help with requesting images or photos.
Yeah, because after they get copied and pasted so much, they lose a lot of resolution and a lot of quality in regards to that. So, I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I could probably help with that because I've been doing graphic design work, publishing, printing, etc. since 1990, a long time. In fact, I got a couple of projects coming up, but also too, depending on what what you have, what the source is, you can kind of work with some of the really cruddy stuff that might come along. But you're right. The worst thing is to get like, a 45K image that you need to blow up to an 8x10 and try to do something.
Yeah.
Not enough information. There's nothing you can do for that. So, but they could be great as springboards for ideas on other things. Not that you necessarily have to use the image itself. Maybe we use it at, Chris does some great graphic design, adaptation of a street scene. It may not even be exactly representational of what it was, some idealized, stylized thing. But, for instance, this call for photos, we can come up with some little, interesting little design for that to get people interested in, and probably use what you just had there to get people interested in submitting stuff. So I guess I don't want to, all this to say, don't be discouraged if we do get cruddy stuff. We might be able to use, we might be able to get something out of it.
That's a great point. Great point.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
And
about the rec center? What about the rec center? There's a lot of seniors that go to the rec center. Do they have a photography club there? Do we know? No.
They put in that
No
public-
photography classes?
No, I think they're just getting the senior program going again because it was discontinued during
Because of COVID,
COVID.
yeah.
So, no,
Well,
I'm
I go out there and play pickleball. I'll talk to a few seniors.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Word of mouth can produce a lot. Yeah.
Right. But we
there
could also
are-
blurb, we could put the same little blurb in their rec center publication. I mean, it doesn't have to be, limited to the city's pub. We could put the rec pub too. We could get it in the Exchange. I don't know, use a
They
little of
can
those.
probably get a notice in the West Plains Chamber newsletter.
There you go.
Yeah.
We have some artwork ready to go. We just adapt the size or whatever we need and pop it in there. Boy, I'm making a lot of work.
Yeah, Chris, I see you got your
well,
hand up.
one of the things that I don't think has been mentioned either is, do we have a contact at the base as far as historians go or anything like that? I'm sure they have a plethora of archives of the base in its early days, and probably Airway Heights in general as well. So
We do have a contact at the base, which is a community coordinator. There is a person who does work on a PR basis, but I've never had any luck with that person responding. So I think we likely have better going through somebody whose job it is to communicate with the city and with other agencies.
I personally have a pretty good contact. I've had reliable luck with them. I wouldn't mind reaching out to them.
Okay,
Yeah. Absolutely. I've got a couple contacts on base too, just honorary commander, who's out there every once in a while still, and he still goes out and discusses a lot of stuff. So I can touch bases and see what he can scratch up too. So
Yeah, I was wondering if they have like, sometimes, there'll be online archives that you can access, but of course it's military, so probably not. You never know. Anyway,
Does the Cheney Free Press have archives?
they do have some archives. A lot of their books are in pretty rough shape, and they only go back I'd have to call Roger and see, because they do have a couple little racks of archives and stuff. So I can see if they might have anything.
I'm back.
all right, so under the photo collection project, I have Chris and Stephen volunteering to contact Fairchild Air Force Base, Lisa volunteering to create a spec for images that would go out in some kind of advertisement or requests, so we kind of get a minimum quality of image. I might suggest you might want to put some parameters around what that image could be too. Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
And then I don't have a volunteer yet, but basically we talked about if there was going to be an advertisement seeking to get images collected, that the sources could be potentially putting the ad in the Cheney Free Press, using the MailChimp newsletter, doing something at the Recreation Center, and something on the city's website. Is that a good summary?
Yeah.
you're just awesome.
Well, I get
Yeah,
to write it down.
Lots of practice, I know.
So I think that's for the photos, kind of what we found. We did find some images available on eBay of former mayors to purchase. They're $20 a piece. They came from the Spokesman review. I don't know how someone got them, but
Huh.
they're selling original photos. But that's all that we found readily available. And then
And there was some stuff, I couldn't access it because it was like behind a paywall. But I think it's archive or newspaperarchive.com. It's what Spokesman Review uses to digitally back up all of their old stuff. And it allows you to search Airway Heights through that. So that might be a resource.
What is the of the site again?
I think it's newspaperarchives.com. It's on the Spokesman site. If you go to
Okay.
archives, it'll take you there. But yeah, the Spokesman archive might be another resource. I'm trying to think of how we can get access to that without going through a whole thing.
Right.
And did you access the museums as well?
I've got a contact at the Northwest Museum. I can reach out to them.
Well, there's just a link that I have bookmarked that you can search through all the old Libby photos and everything like that pretty easily by keyword.
what was that? It was a keyword through which source?
Through the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture, there's a link that you can search through all the old archive photos on there pretty easily.
I would also, as you're thinking about Airway Heights, there's a possibility of reaching out to the Consolidated Tribes of Spokane and seeing if there's any historical photos for the tribe on the West Plains.
You had also jumping the other way towards future, if you will, because you'd also shown us, the revitalization plan and some of the illustrations that went along with that. Are there any of those that we could have access to use? I mean, I'm not even saying like, we need to print that. I'm thinking, you know, conceptually, or we could use a part of it or some, you know, it's just some sort of backdrop, a ghost in a background against another, you know, historical photo to say this is what, however it works or whatever it looks like. But if the more resources we have to what we want Airway Heights to look at, like in
Yeah.
the future, you know, and even what it is like now would be helpful. I think those areas that we're
Yeah.
concentrating on anyway.
So plans that go back to 2018, we would be able likely to work with the consultants to get a better quality image than the PDFs that we have in our basically Word documents or PDF that we have, because they were the source of those.
Yeah.
And there are some artistic renderings in those of streetscapes specifically.
Okay.
So yeah, we could go back and get this better quality streetscape image. We again knew what we needed it to be.
Yeah, I have bad ones, but we can try and get the good ones.
Yeah, we don't have the good ones in the documents. They've been copied and pasted too many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'd be huge files, so.
And then I don't know if this works for everybody or if it works for the city or anything, like if there can be just a Dropbox that everybody could access, especially as it comes closer for inspiration, like that would be awesome.
A Dropbox for the Arts Commission.
Yeah, and we can,
Photos like the ones you just tagged, you know.
yeah, absolutely. And we can just dump them all in there if we all have access to it, you know.
All right.
Yeah, I can set up a Google Drive for that.
That would be
That's-
squarely exact.
That's, yeah, that's super easy. That's fine.
That'd be great.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we have several actionable activities with everybody volunteering. So with that, I will just hand it back to the chair to kind of lead the discussion about the revitalization funds and how to use them.
Heather, can we amend this to actually adopt the minutes from last? It's not on here. That's my fault. But we need approval of minutes from the previous.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Does somebody need to make a motion to amend?
That's
That
the
in-
agenda to add.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll second. To amend the agenda to include the reading of the minutes from last month. The approval of the minutes from last month.
And we could put that as,
What would you call it?
what would be normally item 6.
It was just
Okay.
order of business. It's not that we necessarily.
Right in behind public comments is where it goes then. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We had the motion and the second. All in favor of amending the agenda to include the approval of last meeting's minutes? Okay.
Aye.
Okay.
Looks like Tina has joined us at 2:36. Tina, can you see and hear us?
I
Okay.
can. Sorry for my tardiness. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Loud
Okay.
and clear. Okay, and so those minutes were approved. Back to the presentation then, correct? Am I in the right
Yes.
spot? Okay.
So downtown revitalization funds, there were several ideas that the Arts Commission was putting forth, and it sounded like there were 2 ideas that were getting a lot of traction. Lisa mentioned the art market or art fair is one of them, and
Yeah.
the other one was the graphic design for the box,
The
is
wrap.
actually the control box at the intersection of Lawson and US 2 for the signalized intersection. There's only one box there.
Yep.
Did we decide we were gonna do that? Or I was.
No,
okay.
these were ideas that were discussed at the last meeting.
Yeah, okay. All right, but just that one location, not in a general. Like, this is one of the solutions that we could do over town at other places as well, or is that the only place that would really be useful?
Well, these particular funds are specifically for downtown revitalization. So that's generally between Lawson and Winston Street and a little bit at Plymouth Street. So we would probably not be able to use these funds to cover control boxes at other intersections in the
Right.
city. We would be within the context of those dollars.
And then did we talk about, for instance, what happens if somebody spray paints them or decides to deface them in any way? What kinds of-
I was gonna ask about that myself because I noticed a street sign when I was driving up from Spokane that was spray painted. And yeah, that was a big question that crossed my mind as well. So
We can get more detailed information from the city of Spokane and Spokane Arts about the box covers. It's my recollection when I was involved in that project, because it was my team at the city of Spokane that had been working on those, is that particular cover actually is a graffiti deterrent treatment.
okay,
And it makes it not only less attractive because it's art and art doesn't tend to get defaced as much, but
Yeah.
the actual coating makes it fairly easy to clean.
okay.
But we can get more information from the city or Spokane Arts, because I think Spokane Arts is under contract to continue to operate that program. I'm trying to remember what, I think it's called the utility box wrap program.
Okay.
And there's already a vendor here locally who does that, is my recollection.
Okay.
Yes, the Kalispell tribe also did the box, the utility box program, and there is some type of material that does prevent any graffiti or anything like that from being a permanent effect on it. So it is easy. I'm not saying it's easily wiped off, but it can be cleaned off without destroying the art.
Call it graffiti resistant. Not proof,
Yes.
but
And during the discussion, is that the only boxes, the corner of Lawson and Second right there that would be in this project? Is there only that one in the downtown area?
I believe so. I think
Okay.
we drove it with Google
Yeah,
last time. And I think all of the other utility features are really small or on poles.
right.
That's why that box was one. And we discussed at the last one, the city's attempts at using banners and why that banner program was disbanded because they became car destroying kites.
yeah.
It's a little windy for here.
Yeah, and that was actually run by Parks and Recreation. They had put a flags on the light poles basically along US 2, and we ended up, as my understanding, we had to pay for some claims associated with those, and so the program was disbanded. I'm just trying to find my notes of what else that the group talked about.
I know there was some discussion on a sign for the downtown area as well. There was some discussion about a permanent sign being put in place somewhere in that area. So definitely like to bring that back to the table and see kind of what everybody's thoughts are on that.
And I think that it might have been either Cosette or Michaela had spoke about a rotating sculpture program.
Yeah,
And I think Coeur d'Alene might have been an example that was brought up. that the art was temporary, could be purchased.
Yeah, and they have the permanent bases, and I think I've seen a couple that have price tags at the bottom of them in Coeur d'Alene, actually, now that you mention it. And yeah, they just have slots where the art sits, and it can be set for display, set up for purchase, and then switched out at a later time for another piece. So I think that's a really good idea, because it has that cyclic value to it, and it's not the same thing the whole time. So
So just to recap, a permanent sign for the downtown, a rotating art program, box wrapping program, and an art fair or market. Were those the 4 ideas so far?
There
Were
was-
park bench, weren't
Yeah.
park
Oh,
benches
yeah.
brought up? as well?
yeah, oh yeah.
There's a list in the meetings under C on here of everything we discussed.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I looked right over the art benches part. And yeah, I think those were to help kind of beautify that little grassy stretch right there. Kind of give it a little bit of a parkish value. Now for practical application of some of these, where's everybody's thoughts on that? What's with the $15,000 kind of budget, and with applying that practically to make as much of an initial difference as possible, I think too. Where's everybody sitting kind of with that?
I think perhaps we need to look at a short-term vision and a long-term vision, if you will. Because we're kind of talking a couple different things here in terms of life cycle, how long they'll last, how long we plan on seeing, what kind of, and again, as far as like the Art Fest goes, I can see that would really call for integration with the community, with vendors, with artists, with food people. We have great food here. There's so much we could do with that. But that's going to be more of a long-term vision. There's a whole lot of logistics in terms of timing, and it takes people, takes feet on the ground to do it. Some of these other things are probably a little more short-term, and the price tag might be a little more reasonable as well, in terms of if that's our goal, is to use that money right now, or if we're going to think about putting it towards a more long-term vision and application of funds for a different style of project. I guess it's just kind of figuring out, we're still in the beginning throes
Yeah.
here, not quite sure which direction all of this is going. And this is great, because the brainstorming thing, a lot of times, is the hardest part. Coming up with good ideas can be really hard, but yeah, putting them in, implementing them, like I was thinking about permit signage. I'm like, okay, there's permits, and then you got to figure about, does it fit in with planning department and the building department? Who's gonna, and how permanent is it? What's it gonna be made of, metal or wood, or then you start getting into all of that. So that
Oh,
could
yeah.
also be more of a long-term thing.
Just my 2 cents, like low-hanging fruit from that list seems to be wrapping that one utility box, and it seems achievable and attainable, especially if we put it out into the community as a call for submissions. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and obviously that's not biting off a big piece of the pie. We're starting small with this one project, and we're able to move forward clearly with one vision of saying, okay, this is what we want to establish, and that's a start. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that is low-hanging fruit that we could possibly achieve right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with that, and I love the idea of taking baby steps to make sure we're lining things out and stuff, and as we go, because I think we'd have a better look at each step if we take kind of smaller steps and analyze it as we go. So
And what is the cost associated with the utility box?
That's my next
Right.
question.
Yeah.
We'd have to get a current quote, but
Yeah.
when I was working on them, this goes back at least 5 years. They weren't very expensive, $1,200. That doesn't include what you may offer to the artist for their design. That would be, just for the creation of the wrap and installation of the wrap. But again, we get some numbers from Spokane Arts about what is currently costing.
And that did include installation, you said, as well?
It was for installation only. I don't believe it included what you may offer to the artist.
Oh, yeah, because I wonder how much the wrap itself would cost after you get it. You could
I
have to
think
get
the wrap and putting it on, I think, was around $1,200.
Okay,
But offering
a design fee. to
a
the
design
artist,
to the
yeah.
artist, I think might have been separate.
I was just wondering if it was all inclusive, because that seems pretty reasonable for, depending on.
Yeah, that's one of the why those programs have been really kicking off, because they're so affordable.
And I really like the idea of the community submissions for that and stuff, because that's what we really want, is the community involvement. And so,
And
So-
just an idea, like, I don't know if it's possible to, and when you're talking about community involvement, can we like reach out to the staff at Sunset and maybe also make this a school-wide type thing as well? Like, I've seen some very young, talented artists, that could make something cool, not saying, but just opening the field a little bit more, than that, but it could be a cool school-wide project.
Well, that's what-
absolutely.
So,
We could do a blurb for that too, right? We could put, like we're talking about a call for photos, we could do a call for submissions for this as well. We could kind of establish our little, design theme, if you will, stylistically, and then the next time somebody sees something in the publications, they'll be looking for it, you can make a little money. Everybody loves to, you call for logo designs all the time and get all kinds of responses for a couple $100. So I'm sure we probably want to do it.
Absolutely. And I love the school involvement thing. It just kind of clicked an idea where we could even see if we could work something out where the kids just put their handprint, and the design was a bunch of handprints from the kids at school, and that's what wrapped the box or something. But I have a kid that goes to Cheney schools, which is the same school district, so I can touch bases with them to see what kind of partnership we could establish in regards to that.
We have a couple schools here anyway, Heights too, right? Or, well, the elementary school, I guess.
Yeah, but I think they're part of the Cheney district, so.
Spokane Arts has a actual post with regards to solicitation for designs for utility boxes. So just generally information wise, they were offering $350 per design to an artist.
Okay.
So we can get more information about who they're using as the vendor for the actual wraps nowadays. So it sounds like Steven's volunteering to contact the school district, and we'll get information from Spokane Arts on the actual wrap and installation costs.
Oh, and I should probably mention this too. The whole conflict of interest in being a commissioner, actually doing things for the commission. So when I'm saying I'm gonna help with the ads and stuff, that is all pro bono. I mean, that it would be just, and that's okay, right? Commissioners can do ads for their commission.
Well, what? I'm sorry, I missed that. You said commissioners
Well,
can
only
do ads.
because, well, see, because I'm talking about doing ads and stuff, putting ads in some of these publications, and my first thought is like, yeah, I'll just whip them out, no problem. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, because I'm on the commission, I don't want there to be any conflict of interest, or any problem with the bylaws or anything like that. So when I'm volunteering for it, I'm volunteering my time for that as well. But I just want to make sure that's not a problem, right?
No, volunteering your time to contact or to make
Okay.
something is not a conflict of interest, but I would recommend that any request that would go out for a request to advertise should come from the city to that organization. So if you made a design, it would come back to the Arts Commission, and then from there it would go out through City Hall offices to the Chain Free Press or the Exchange or whoever else. It would come through here and request the rec center rather than someone acting as an independent individual from the commission and the city.
Yeah, and we'll definitely need to collaborate on what the verbiage is and how things need to be, type of thing, logos, that. Again, it's not as easy as just whipping it out, but it is helpful to know, as far as how that process would work, like we were just talking about, what would the process be?
Mhm.
Done.
Okay. Huh? All right, and yeah, with some of the other ideas, I know, I think that one is definitely probably the most attainable, just like Chris was saying, the kind of the low hanging fruit. But like Lisa was saying, some of these funds could be put back for some future stuff too. And it could tie in if we can get some of the other fundraising and like grant writing, stuff like that accomplished. And I mean, projects might just start coming out of the woodwork. But yeah, just kind of looking at some of the other ideas, what would be something else that we all could be interested in kind of at least getting a start on or getting ideas rolling about.
Well, has anybody had experience in putting on an art market, for example?
I've done a couple of vendor days with photography prints, but that's about it. I've never like organized a whole art market or anything like that, but I've done a couple vendor things.
And that's all I've done too. I haven't specifically done an art format, but I'm very familiar and comfortable with setting up vendors and, that type of event.
Is there any possibility that we could do something in conjunction with Airway Heights Days?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
I mean, so we don't have to like
Reinvent the wheel.
start with a
Yeah.
huge, big thing and start
Yeah.
with something smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. The Airway Heights Days, for those who may not know about it, occurs over in Sunset Park. The day has been changing because of COVID. Normally it's in July.
think so. It was in October this year.
It was in October this year, but we might need to be a little flexible in the date depending on when the Parks Department decided to deploy it. But yeah, absolutely. And it has some other activities occurring there. So there's a classic car show.
Yes.
There's games for kids that I think are associated with the Kiwanis Club,
Live music,
live music.
food services.
Mhm.
We do have, well, as of Monday, we have an application for a summer farmers market to take place once per month between May and September.
Okay.
So we're still working on the application, but I spoke to the applicant on Monday. She is looking for vendors right now. She has, I think she said, just over 24. But part of that has, can't remember what she called it, crafts, art, stuff like that
Yeah.
included in that. So there may be an opportunity to collaborate once that goes through the process of approval. But I can keep you guys up to date on that and also put you in contact with the applicant.
So potentially put an art fair into a short-term project.
Could be.
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds like a match made in heaven. That's great.
And I like the idea of incorporating it into Airway Heights days. I mean, the crowd's already
Yeah,
there
and there's a ton of room there. I
and
mean, it could have had a lot more space taken up by other stuff
Mhm.
there. I mean, it was crowded too. I mean, there's a lot of people there.
yep.
Awesome.
Now, this is just pie in the sky type stuff, but we were talking, Lisa was talking about the heritage of kind of the Asian culture in Airway Heights. And I'm wondering if there's a food component related to that we could possibly have at art market, so to speak, for example. You know what I'm saying?
Of course, you might not want to leave out Wolfies either.
It's a chance to be able to educate and kind of broaden the community's just mindset of and speak a little more to the history of who we are and what the is. I think there might be a potential to be able to run to some of the Asian restaurants around and see if they were interested in having a food booth there or something along those lines, or something like that. So, but that's just an idea. That's just a pie in the sky idea. So.
Get to know people.
So just to kind of flesh this out a little bit more about participating or helping assist with an art fair or an art activity. Can you kind of verbalize how you think that helps with downtown revitalization?
For the art market, I think yeah, that's more of an educational thing. I think if we're teaching people about art, or if we could use it as a fundraiser too, though, it might help bring some return funds to put back into the downtown area too. So,
Well, if we're still talking about using the downtown revitalization dollars to help
Yeah.
the event, we
Yeah.
have this really
Yeah.
clear connection between an art activity and the downtown.
yeah.
So I'm just kind of wondering in your mind, what's that connection?
Well-
I can visualize it, but
Yeah.
Aren't we using? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. My thoughts on it aren't we using art, especially local artists, to bring people to downtown? Like, isn't that kind of the idea?
Absolutely.
You're integrating
Is it-
people in the community more, because the problem with Airway Heights is that it's a very transient community by its nature, just because of the Air Force Base. And the demographic of people who live here tend to be young people getting started or whatever, and then they move on. So having folks more invested in the community and as a whole, and wanting to stay here and invest here, invest their dollars, invest their families, invest, put some time in, is definitely going to go a long way towards revitalizing the downtown area. People are going to be definitely interested in seeing it look good and be more positive about the changes that are coming down the road. They don't care, right?
I think it's a good narrative about, drawing activity at the downtown, but, part of a little bit, I was thinking about this, Sunset Park is not in the downtown.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true. And I was thinking about that too. I'm like, well, exactly how does that, but it's close enough. I mean, really, it's just a block and 2 blocks away. And, people go for a walk all the time and walk right by it, or go to it from other areas, including where I live out on by 6th. So it's changing. People are definitely, all the apartment buildings going in, and there are more people walking their dogs and being more mobile. So it's all integrated. You can't necessarily separate the downtown from the rest of that area. It's all, especially that area, the older part of Airway Heights. For a long time, and I don't know if there still were, but there were a lot of people from the Marshall Islands staying there when I first moved here 3 years ago or so. There was definitely a community of people that were living right by the park, as a matter of fact. And, wouldn't it be wonderful if people decided to stick around and, do what it takes to make Airway Heights more than just a stop on a highway too. So anyway, that I could synopsize that if you wanted to. It's a little hard to put all of that into a statement, but how would we put it? What would be the connection? Without arguing about it, I guess, about where it is, but it's what is it? It's tangential, or it's it's right next to that area that we're talking about. So I can see that bringing people, and again, we talked about before with an art fair, where would we have it? Some of these things we're talking about, it's going to be an issue about where we want to do them. So where are we going to do the farmers market? What was that? What's the idea for that?
So the farmer's market is going to be in the parking lot of the Heights Church, which is in downtown.
Did you mention, you might have mentioned that. Yeah, that's a good
I
spot.
don't think I did. But yeah, but that's right in the core of downtown. So that would help.
Yep.
Then it would make sense to partner with them than Sunset Park. Even though when I think of Sunset Park and I think of the downtown area of Airway Heights, I think of the whole area, which probably should be called the Heritage District, kind of like this whole area is the older residential and the downtown area. It's kind of like a whole area. I think of Sunset Park as part of that.
Sunset Park is just a little bit beyond the downtown designated area. The downtown area does go north on King Street, but it only goes about halfway the distance to the park. But if you wanted to do it along with Airway Heights days, that may mean an opportunity to maybe be the same days, have cross promotion, so it gives people an opportunity to do more than one thing as a celebration of the community on that weekend.
yeah.
So, I'm just kind of asking these questions as you're formulating these ideas. It's pretty easy in the wraps, like thinking about, well, we need to go to cost per wrap and so forth. But for purposes of the art fair, maybe give a little more thought about what you want to invest in that event. Is it tents? Is it just the overall promotion of the event and the organization of it? Kind of how would you invest in that event in order for it to be an activity?
Yeah. I know my thoughts initially are, because it would be kind of an initial community event for the Arts Commission to be involved in, it could be a good opportunity to be hands-on to educate people that are going to Airway Heights Days about the plan and just about what the commission's together for and what we're trying to do. So
Do we have a time limit on this room?
No, we're okay.
Okay. I was just checking because we've had two different staff people come in here, so.
Yeah, that's, I wanted to make sure. we were-
one quick question, how often did you say the farmers markets will be happening if approved or when approved?
Yeah, so they're proposing to me once a month between May and September, so May, June, July, August, September, so 5 times, so. If I did the math.
They
right.
have a day and a time, yeah. but-
I have to look at the application materials. I think it's on the weekends and the mornings,
Mhm.
so I'll have to look at it, but yeah, it literally just came in on Monday, so.
And like you were saying, is there a possibility on those Airway Heights days, instead of being in Sunset, like we set up the art market in front of Yokes, for example? Because I know a lot of people come from Spokane and they want to experience everything. It's not just straight to Sunset Park. So I think, like you were saying, there's a lot of synergy that could happen there, you know?
Is Yokes, does anybody know if Yokes is pretty good about allowing that sort of thing, or would we just have to contact them and?
I think you'd have to contact
Yeah.
them, but they do allow for fireworks stands
Okay,
Yeah,
every year out there, though I don't know if they do it for free or they charge for it.
right, yeah. Yep,
I think historically they have allowed events in the parking lot before.
okay.
And weren't we saying at the last meeting that the city owns part of that parking lot?
No, the city doesn't own the parking lot. There's a right of way.
The right of way, that's what I
For the road.
Yeah,
So the drive lane on the north side of the parking lot between that green space, the STA parking ride, and where people drive is part of the right of way, and there's some parking spaces. Oops,
Sorry, everyone be able to see what I'm doing here.
those parking spaces on the right. Next to Wolfie's, that's actually the STA park and ride. You guys can't see it, but nope, that's concrete. Yeah, right.
Okay.
These are parking spaces for the STA parking ride. And this is the continuation of 14th Avenue, and then when you look at the parking stalls, they're all on private property here for, yes.
okay.
So, I mean, you
Yes,
could do something backing into those spots. I would probably, and since it'd be a weekend, probably not a conflict with the STA parking ride.
true. It would just be very, very visible right there, especially on
Oh,
something
yeah.
like Airway Heights days, you know, right along the strip there.
Well, then is it, there's not enough room in front of the hub? Because the hub is what, it's over to the right, a couple of parcels, I guess. Yeah,
This is
Yeah.
where they're doing the arts market.
Oh, I
right here.
yeah. Yeah, and
A
of
little
course
bit
it's
above.
right there too. It's always makes it fun. Okay. Yeah, that property that you're talking about, gosh, it looks like it's subdivided even. The green space, that's some pretty rough ground over there. There's big potholes and it's kind of, the ground's not really attractive. But anyway, I'm sure there'll be some changes coming.
And I guess what I want to ask too, if we do something along these lines, do we as the Arts Commission or something want to have a presence there educating and folks to what our goal hopefully is going to be over the next year?